Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the Future of Restaurants. This is our second roundtable, and we're delighted to have you all here today. The Independent Restaurant Coalition is committed to building a sustainable future for independent restaurants and bars, their employees, and the communities they support. We couldn't do this work without all of you, and we are especially grateful to our partners at OpenTable for supporting these conversations. This event is for you today. So please make sure to take advantage of the Q&A box, post your questions there, and we will do our best to get to all of them. With that, I don't want to delay this conversation anymore. I'm going to pass the mic to Christina Weiss, your moderator from OpenTable today. And thank you again for joining us today.
Erica, thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So my name is Christina Weiss. I'm the Vice President of Global Sales and Services for OpenTable. I have been a part of the restaurant industry since I was 18 years old, and I absolutely love it. As a committed partner to the IRC and the industry as a whole, I'm really grateful to be a part of today's conversation. And this morning, we are going to hear from 4 industry leaders. They're going to share their experiences, their perspectives, on one of the industry's most pressing issues. What are restaurants doing to cultivate, retain, and recruit team members? And our hope, my hope, is that this conversation really serves as a launchpad to how we as an industry can continue to work together for a more equitable, positive, and supportive workplace. All right, y'all, so let's get started. So we have an incredible group here. Miss Ellen Yin. Good morning, Ellen. Ellen is the co-founder and owner of High Street Hospitality Group, which includes Philadelphia's beloved Fork. Just so happened to celebrate a 25th birthday this year, or excuse me, this month. Erick Williams. Good morning. Erick is the chef owner of acclaimed Virtue in Chicago, along with Mustard Seed Kitchen and Daisy's Po' Boy and Tavern. Erick was also the 2022 recipient of Best Chef Great Lakes James Beard Foundation. So congratulations. Good morning to you, Amanda Cohen. Amanda is the chef owner of Dirt Candy. Dirt Candy is one of New York City's most innovative restaurants. And Amanda and team just earned a Michelin star. Really fantastic. Amanda is also a founding member of the IRC. And Mr. Tim Sullivan, good morning. Tim is the COO of the iconic Melba's restaurant in Harlem. And Tim is stepping in this morning for Melba, who was not able to join us today. All right, y'all. So we all know that change does not happen overnight. So first, we are going to talk about the changes that you all have implemented within the 4 walls of your restaurants. And then later, we're going to talk more about what's happening at the community level. All right, so creating a sustainable and equitable workplace really starts at home. And, you know, conversations about restaurant workplace culture, work-life balance, benefits, compensation, all of these are longtime hot buttons in our industry. But you know, there is so much good that's happening in our industry, and sometimes that's the story that doesn't get told. So this morning, these 4 panelists are absolutely trailblazers. They have been addressing these issues for years. All right, so Amanda, we are going to get started with you. All right, it's 2015, Dirt Candy, you eliminate tipping, you increase wages and prices, you offer a really robust creative benefits program, and all of this to combat the tightening labor market. So you have said that this really positively impacted not only your bottom line, but your ability to attract and retain talent and staff. So question is, for those who are looking to implement similar changes, if you could tell us a little bit about what's worked and what advice you would give.
Yeah, It's a work in progress. So lots of things work and lots of things don't work. The biggest advice I have is actually that you have to, I mean, it's an uphill battle, and mostly what you're looking for is employees who kind of want to go on the journey with you, and we weed them out pretty quickly. It's a two-way street. One thing that has really helped is we have really increased our wages quite a bit. But it's and within that, then we've been able to really retain our employees, especially over the last year or so since we reopened from the pandemic. But I think it's more than that. We really have tried to change the culture in the restaurant. We have an open door policy. We try to have lots of open and honest meetings about how the restaurant's doing and what things people want to have changed. We check in with our employees all the time. We have something called DC University, which on top of sort of the regular benefits that our staff is offered, it's sort of a points program. The easiest example is if they go out for dinner and they write a report, they get $50 and a point, and they can go spend that $50 hopefully on another restaurant, and then the point goes into the system, and at 5 points they may get $100 or a new knife or something to sort of keep the dialogue going, or we'll pay for them to go take a class, and then they'll get a point. We really want our staff to be interested in this industry. I think pre-pandemic and pre-2015, it was sort of just people were just coming in and out the door. It was just a revolving door of employees who were just here for the money, and we really wanted to stop that. We want people who want to be here, who want to help the industry grow and change, because I might have all these great ideas, but I can't do it alone by myself in my bed. Like I need people to work with me and have the back and forth, and who want to grow in the industry. I love this place. I've grown up in it, and I see so much potential. And I want people to come in like I did and be like, wow, this is my career, and I can't wait to sort of, spend the rest of my life in it. And so we keep trying to find ways where we can help them grow within their positions.
I love that, Amanda, and taking such an interest in your employees and really thinking about their future. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not always interested in all of their stories.
Understood. All right. So Ellen, oh, did I cut you off, Amanda?
No, go ahead. Go to Ellen.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So Ellen, you have talked a lot about how new projects have really helped keep your team engaged and excited, offering like new positions and challenges that translate into what is truly exceptional longevity on your team. I'd love it if you could speak to initiatives like the Wonton Project, and how that serves both the community and your staff, and how others could use a model like that to create a lasting impact of their own.
Well, I want to piggyback off of what Amanda was just saying about trying different things. And, we are always looking for people who want to go on the journey with us. Having Fork started out as a very small restaurant, in restaurant terms, 68 seats. And you can only offer so much when your GM is there and your chef is there and they're there for 4 or 5 years. So it does help a lot when your organization is growing to have other places for them to grow. But during the pandemic, a perfect example is that, we were unfortunately retracting. We had to shut down High Street on Market, relocate it from a 4,000 square foot space into a 300 square foot space. And so trying to create opportunities for our employees to grow, we had to really think outside the box. And so the Wonton Project was one of those ideas where, I always thought I wanted to start something that really reflected on my heritage and, everything that happened in March 2021, which now I can't even remember the years, 2021, with anti-Asian discrimination and all that. It really hit home to me. And I had been thinking about this Wonton Project and how I could use it as a platform for creating awareness. And it also gave our opportunity for all my chefs who have never, most of them have never cooked anything Asian, to really get in there with me, spend time with me, and also to create a project from scratch, to see how we plan it, how we grow it. And there are a lot of examples like that. Another example is the Sisterly Love Collective, which is one of my projects to promote women in the industry. Just having extra hands in my organization to help grow that as well, and partner with me and collaborating to do special events, to organize workshops, to have exposure on a different level that they may not have initially had exposure. So and you know, working in the community, of course, I think is always something that even in corporate America is something that is highly encouraged, that you want your employees to engage with the community. So I think that is something that that the Wonton Project and Sisterly Love just automatically created.
Thank you for sharing all that. Okay, so Erick, we are going to move on and move on to you. So I had the pleasure of seeing you speak at the Welcome Conference this year. And you talk a lot about your value-based practice. And one of my favorite things that you talk about is the importance of patience and kindness in establishing a mentorship program. I'd love for you to talk to us about what is critical to the success of a mentorship program, and how does someone go about starting one?
So I think it gets a little bit confused when we talk about mentorship, because I don't actually exercise a lot of mentorship. We work on a process that we're all familiar with called development. And mentorship allows an individual with some authoritative space to kind of consult a person as they navigate space. We don't want to consult and help people understand how to navigate specific space. What we want to do is develop skills that allow our team members and our management team to be able to apply them everywhere they go. And so the whole idea and the structure is wrapped around this notion that if I can teach a young cook how to fold towels, which seems like the most mundane task, then I can teach that person how to organize a station based on a practice. If I can teach them how to organize a station, I can teach them how effective it is to work on a clean station under pressure. And then essentially what I teach them how to do is the same thing that they can apply at home. And so in many cases, most of us work in chaotic environments. And the fastest way for us to get out of some of the chaos, to be able to think freer and more clearly under pressure, is to organize the space. It is very, very hard to have clear thinking when your capacity is limited by mess. And so we use very standard practices like the one that I just outlined. And what we found is we have young adults and some full-grown adults making better decisions outside of our space as a result of the applications that take place inside of our space. And so it's a one-shot deal. Mentorship and training teaches you how to do a job at the job, but does it necessarily translate to home? I think the thing that also comes up is this idea that you have to leave your private life at home. For restaurant operators, we spend too much time in a space to leave our private life at home. At some point, it's going to bleed in. And so how do we create best practices that work both at home and in the space? And that's really how we hone in on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Erick. And, tying in all of the things that you all just spoke about, really development and learning and setting people up for success, not just within your restaurant, but in life in general. And you're right, when you use the word chaos, I think, especially in today's world, there's a lot of chaos going on. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, y'all. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about inspiring change within the community and the industry. So all of those things that you all are doing with inside of the four walls is very interesting and inspiring. But when I learn and hear about all the things that you all are doing and your dedication to really fostering change outside of the four walls of your restaurant, I'd like to talk a little bit about how you're bringing the community in, how you're giving back, and how the people that you hire are really integral to that. So Tim, I'd love to start with you. So 17 years ago, Melba's opened in Harlem. Certainly a lot has changed in 17 years. But one thing that is constant is y'all's team's commitment to the community. And even as your brand has expanded, it's really stayed true to the North Star of hiring people from the neighborhood. And even if they don't have a hospitality background. So I'd love to hear from you about any tips you have about hiring and training community members who don't have a traditional restaurant or hospitality background.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. And Chef Mel was apologetic that she couldn't be on this morning. We all had to get our start somewhere. So, we all came in at some point. I think nowadays what we're experiencing is that where we may have had one or two employees that were starting to train from scratch, we're seeing it be a little bit more prevalent that we have new individuals coming in, especially new individuals that may be coming from another background. So what we found best is really understanding and managing expectations, both our expectations and the employees' expectations. Very similar to what Eric was talking about. I joke around with our employees and tell them that we've been blessed with the hospitality curse, right? It's embedded in our brains that the answer is always yes. And how do we get it done? Because we've always gotten it done that way. And we wipe our head at the end of the day and maybe go out and have a beer and say, cheers, we made it happen. But I think getting down and really having our employees understand the basics of what we're trying to achieve, to be able to give them that knowledge, to hold them accountable, but to hold ourselves accountable. What are we setting them up for success? Have we given them the tools to succeed? And more importantly, building that future so that they can grow. Some of my, mentors that I've had have embedded the idea of growth from within. We are true believers of that. So I embrace having someone that comes in that's green, that doesn't maybe have the experience, but that's energetic. And if I can manage their expectations and teach them, I think that's part of why we're here. It's part of what gets us excited to watch someone grow and flourish. It's our industry is funny. I know it's changed through TV and entertainment that everyone wants to be in the industry. But when I was growing up, when younger, a lot of us fell into this industry. Maybe we didn't listen as much or didn't go to college, right? I should have listened to my parents, right? But it's a wonderful career, and it's something that can really inspire, and it's something that you can make a living and support your family on. But you need to be able to cultivate those employees. Our approach at Melba's is fair but firm, with a balance of empathy to understand the culture of what's going on outside and what people might be up against. Eric, you said it very well. I mean, we spend more time at work than we do at home with our loved ones. So understanding that balance and having the employees understand how their actions, both positively or negatively, can affect the operation is key to watching them grow. In an industry where time is so tight and we don't have a lot of time to do everything, it's important to take that time to pause, to bring the group together, to educate and talk together about what's working, what's not, and really setting them up so that they can continue to grow. We are seeing more individuals grow from within. So more than ever, we're taking an entry-level position and teaching them a mid-level position. That's something that's changed. But I think that can have a positive impact in people understanding that we can gain some tenureship there, where we can retain employees longer by them knowing that they have a place to grow.
Tim, thank you for all that. I mean, yes, I think about, growing up in restaurants and hospitality being in our blood. And certainly the conversation has become more mainstream, even with something like The Bear that got released on Hulu. I know that has prompted just a lot of questions, and even just my friend group. And, we talk about things like family meal at restaurants, and because it is our family, right? And we are there so much. So thank you for sharing all of that. So Ellen, I'm going to pass this next one to you. So you have spoken a lot about your efforts to change the narrative for women in the industry, and thank you for that. You've been vocal about recruiting more women. Earlier, you mentioned sisterly love. So if you could please offer some tips to restaurateurs that are looking to diversify their teams, especially when, each group does have differing needs.
Absolutely. So, during the past decade, everyone can acknowledge that it has been difficult to find qualified talent, period. We talked a little bit about this. I agree 100% with Tim about the need for managing expectations, obviously growing from within. But I think that finding a diverse team has to come from looking outside the places that we have normally been looking, whether that's culinary programs, culinary agents. I love culinary agents, Craigslist, all these places that we're used to looking for people. We kind of have to roll back and say, okay, if we really want a diverse team, where can we find these people? And to recognize that that so many people have different needs. I mean, we have people coming to us from, we're in Philadelphia, we're right near the University of Pennsylvania. A young woman that I know organized a group called Gourmand to try to introduce college students to the restaurant industry, to the hospitality industry. And that has been a huge success in terms of people who never thought that the hospitality industry might have been something that they would be interested in. And I think that works on all levels. That works in urban environments where, there are students who this can be a very successful career, and the wages that you earn as a server or as a chef are good wages, or can be good wages, if our industry keeps working at it. But finding those people and making sure that they know that these opportunities exist, because it might not even be in the vocabulary. So in terms of women, I mean, a lot of women have not thought about the fact that entrepreneurship is an opportunity. It's something that you can get into without giving up your day job. You can grow into something that you're passionate about, that can allow you to manage multiple priorities, for example, child rearing or elder care. And I think that's the most important thing, is really understanding where the people who are coming into your recruitment cycle, what they are looking for and how to nurture that, whether that be starting them from scratch, like Erick was just mentioning, or looking at them from a different perspective, those people who may be looking to expedite their path as well, how you can help them achieve their goal. And ultimately, I always joke and say, we train so many people, and then, unfortunately, if you don't have that place for them to grow to, they end up leaving you. But, that helps. The more that I can engage them, the more that we can help our own organization grow as well.
Thank you for that, Ellen. So continuing to talk about the communities and doing the work outside of the four walls of the restaurant. Erick, I'm going to address this one to you. So at the Welcome Conference, you said restaurants are hospice to our communities. You absolutely walk this walk. You are credited with a large part of putting Hyde Park on the culinary map. So how do you recommend successful operators can enter underserved communities and expand opportunity there while really still respecting the culture of the neighborhood?
Well, that's a really big question. I mean, we could do a talk just on that alone. But I think the best way to address it is to talk about purpose. And the reality is what is the purpose of restaurants in particular communities? And what we've seen in the past leading up to now are two, there are many kinds of restaurants, but two kind of thoughts. One is the mom and pop restaurant where someone delivers their wares in a community or in a mainstream area. And it's mostly about recipes that have been passed down. This is the person's shot at delivering things that they would deliver at home out to the general population. Then you've got this other example, which is the model that most of us fit in, which is a space that we're really focused on the numbers being the bottom line. We're extremely focused on efficiencies from front of the house and back of the house. And in some cases, those spaces are built around, quite frankly, a chef's ego, or it's built around a theme. What we do has a different kind of purpose when I talk about restaurants being hospice. Both of those two kinds of restaurants have the capacity and the ability to show up for philanthropic causes, to rally around political movements and or social civic movements. But our practice deals with starting with purpose. So we knew that we wanted to really curate space through art, through music, through who we hired, how we hired, and what that looked like. And then we reduced that down to the food and the treatment of people. And so I think a lot of restaurants get it right in terms of treatment. A lot of restaurants get it right in terms of profitability. Despite what the naysayers say, people wouldn't keep getting into the business if it was a continuum of failing businesses. But I think the part that we miss is creating culture in communities. And we took a very simple approach to culture. We wanted to be kind. It was the first thing, it was at the top of the list. How can we be kind to each other? Starting at the top, how can we be kind to every team member that comes into the door? What did that language sound like? I don't consider myself a boss. I very rarely talk about my employees. I talk about team members. I want everybody vested. And people that aren't vested tend to not last in this environment. And it allows me to avoid some things. I don't deal with a whole lot of people kissing up because there's no advantage to kissing up to a team member. There's an advantage to being a high producer. There's an advantage to being kind. There's an advantage to working diligently every day to shoulder someone else's burdens and understanding that with that investment, somebody's willing to shoulder yours. And so we were able to do that in the space, which expanded outside the space. What happened is the community started feeling that kindness and feeling us shouldering burdens. We were really diligent during the pandemic and one of the first in our city to just decide that putting out a lot of meals was burning us out fast when takeout was really prevalent. We needed to be in the space because sitting and listening to the news all day wasn't helping any of our brains. And so we elected to take care of someone that we felt was working harder than us, first responders. And that gave us purpose in that moment. Well, once we did it, the community then had purpose and they jumped in and decided to donate towards those meals. And so I think really understanding what you want to do outside of making money has a lot to do with how you connect with the people around you. The thing that none of us like to talk about is this idea is many of us were sitting on the edge of our seats, hoping that our spaces didn't get looted or burned down during the pandemic and everything that ensued shortly after the George Floyd video. And how do you better protect yourself in those moments of vulnerability, intense vulnerability? You have to be, as Tim said, connected to the community. You have to be, as Ellen said, connected to your demographic. There have to be ambassadors and people who are willing to advocate on your behalf because you actually stand for something. Whatever we pay, if we double the pay of all of our employees, it's not enough for someone to feel fully connected to our spaces. It's the care and the concern, right? When we use the word hospice, that's the care that usually happens right before you die. And what we're looking at is democracy dying. We're looking at people's goals and values dying. We're looking at people's hope dying. And so how do we treat that? And we just found that care is the only recipe that we have that works consistently.
Eric, thank you for that. I will also tell you that when we got in the car after the Welcome Conference, we took your advice and we put on some Earth, Wind, and Fire. And it does make everything a little bit better. Yeah, that's very powerful what you're saying. And thank you for sharing that. So y'all, it's really heartening to hear about all of the changes that you're making in the communities and in the industry. We do have quite a few audience questions, so I would like to move into those. Amanda, I'm going to start with you. We have a question. We have a couple questions here about this. Tying back to what we said in the earlier part of the call, all of you really being trailblazers. You have been very vocal in the industry about being overlooked in a white male dominated industry. And I'd love to hear from you about what you've learned that's helped you overcome this challenge and made you still emerge as a true leader in this industry.
I mean, perseverance in one word. I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, I wish I had a magic formula for how to change it. And, you know, it's funny, I did get the Michelin star this year. And when I looked at, I wasn't there, not because I was against it. I just actually had to work. And I didn't really believe that I was going to get it. And I didn't want to go to the party and not get an award. But I looked at all the pictures afterwards, and you know, I would have been one of maybe like 3 women who have a star in the city, 3 or 4. And that's a pretty low statistic still for New York City. And, you know, on the one hand, I was pretty disappointed. And that disappointment was kept in check because my staff was so excited. And but I guess, you know, I felt like, and I feel like this is that the more we see women and minorities and people of color winning these awards, the better it is. And that the more that, you know, you think you can do it. If you don't see people who look like you up on stage, then you also start to believe that it's an impossibility. And unfortunately, we're still not there yet where it's an easy road, but, you know, hopefully it's slowly changing. And then all of us who are in it and, you know, doing our job, we're doing it for many different reasons, but one of them would hopefully be to really change the industry in terms of diversity and who we look at as who's making great food. There are so many better restaurants than me in New York City.
Oh, did we lose Amanda or is it me? Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Amanda, we lost the end of what you were saying there.
Oh, I was saying that I'm a sucky restaurant and there's better restaurants than me. You should get, you should also get stars. But, you know, hopefully my, you know, this one more female chef having a star in the city will make a difference, and it will really, you know, open up the field a little bit more. And next year the field will be open more and more again, and we'll really start seeing it change.
Absolutely.
Can I just jump in there and say
Love
one
it.
thing? Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the reason why it's so important for women to band together and to collaborate with each other, because to elevate their voices, to be present together, you know, first, congratulations, Amanda. That's an amazing accomplishment, and you do not suck. And they're it's just like crazy. But I do believe that when voices are together, it does elevate and it does make other women see that there is an opportunity, because otherwise these one-off situations sometimes get lost, and it's just sad, because it should be a cause for a major celebration, and all the women who received stars in New York should have a big party, in my opinion.
That is a party I would like to attend. Yes.
Agreed.
But you know, all of you representing your communities and your cultures and all of that, and using your voice, right? It starts with each and every one of us. Okay, so we have several questions that have come in. There's a lot of inquiries about hiring. And so Tim, one directed to you, and really though, I think we can all talk about this in general. So the question is, the passion for Melba's hometown neighborhood of Harlem and New York City is palpable. Considering you hire local staff, how do you interview for, hire, and train team members to ensure that they have the same passion? And Amanda, you too spoke about passion at the beginning, so I'd love for y'all to contribute.
Sure. So I am relatively new to Melba's organization, about 4 months. I was drawn into her organization just through her passion, her story, everything that she's done over 17 years. When you listen to her speak about the neighborhood and why she chose the space that she chose, it's very inspiring. It's something that you can't overlook. To pick an area that, as she explains, was riddled with with some crime and some drug activity, to inspire others that they could cross the street and have that opportunity to come and do something else, is something that we use and as a cultivating tool when talking to individuals. I think the best way in which we can interview is just sitting down and being transparent, listening, being able to talk about past experiences, and then really managing the expectations for what we're trying to do. I often tell individuals that, how we all started. I started washing dishes. I didn't go out and grab that job because I wanted to. I needed to have a job, and I maybe gotten in some trouble, and that's how it grew. But the passion grew from there. And life happens around food. And so once you can sit down and really engage with someone, you can see their level of engagement. I think it's important to give everyone a chance, or second chances, but also during that process to manage the expectations and to manage the ability to managing up or moving on, because there are so many people that are that the restaurant is responsible for their livelihoods, that we need to be fair and firm and empathetic, but not be complacent. If you don't sit there and go through and manage and say, these are things that we were successful on, or these were misses or failures, we need to mitigate our exposure to just having that bad experience pop up. So it's giving people the opportunity, giving them the love and support, showing them, teaching, being alongside of them. Melba says the same thing you say, Eric. No one works for her. We work together. And it's something that we all get in there and do together. So I think by doing that, we've seen more people respond to, this is really an environment that I want to be a part of. And it's something that has led to the successfulness of cultivating a group that now has tenure. I've walked into a restaurant in which there's not a lot of new faces. There are people that have been with her for 10 plus years, some individuals since the opening. And I think that's a sign of someone who's really a true leader, as Chef is, and that she's given many people opportunities, and again, giving back into the community. She's very passionate. She doesn't have a dollar I come in and I worry about budgets, and there is no budget for marketing. The marketing dollar is spent on giving back to the community through donations. I like to at least get some eyes on that so that we can win some points. She's more of an unseen act of kindness, so I guess I can be a better Christian in that way. But she's really someone that's I'm so inspired to work with. I say for, she says with.
Love that. So Amanda, thank you, Tim. That's pretty powerful right there. So Amanda, this ties in. This is kind of part 2 of that question, and it ties into what you talked about earlier in the talk. So the question is, so for candidates that do not have previous experience, how do you determine if they do have the commitment level that's needed to perform in this, very high pressure environment and all of those types of things? How do you know? How do you figure that out?
Well, I think they self-determine. We do get a lot of people who come in and who want to work here, and we're willing to give anybody a shot, but it's pretty clear within the first couple of hours whether or not they still want to be there. People don't realize how physically challenging the job is in a kitchen, and just how much sort of patience you have to have, and how repetitive it can be, and how loud. But if they haven't, if they decide they want to stay and we think they're a good candidate, what we've done mostly, because I can see it, Stephen's question is, we try not to actually have a high pressure environment. That's the biggest change that I think we've made. It might still feel there's a lot of anxiety, but we've changed the way we run the kitchen so that people don't have to come in and feel terrified, and that they're not going to do a good enough job where there's too much work for them to do. We have extra people on staff now to take care of some of that burden. We always have a number of sous chefs around whose sole job is to just make sure that the cooks are doing their job. The sous chefs aren't meant to have sort of their own project. It's just there to oversee. And the other night we changed the menu over. We do this every season. I didn't realize when I started this how fast seasons came up, but apparently it's 4 times a year. That's unfortunate. And it was new menu, and it was the first day of the menu, and we had tons of people helping out, and I had 2 cooks were like, oh, we did the worst. This is a shit show. And my CDC and I were both like, oh my gosh, you guys did great. You guys got the food out. It was timely. Nobody waited more than a couple of extra minutes. Everybody knew it was the first night. It was great. And they were like, no, we did so bad. It took so long. You kept saying we need it fast. And we're like, well, of course we need it faster. We still have to service the guests. And it made me feel sad because we've worked so hard for them not to feel that high sort of anxiety. And that's something that we've talked about. Okay, how do we make sure that the next time going into this, and there might not be, it's a new menu. We switch over. The first day is always going to be hard. But I don't want my cooks to ever feel that they've done a bad job, especially when they've done a good job. And that's really important to me. It's one thing, if it was a bad night and they also had a bad night, and then we have to work through that and figure it out. But that's not fun. Who wants to go to work? So we've taken out the high pressure as much as possible.
Good. I like to hear that. This question for any of you all, please feel free to jump in. So again, it's around the hiring. So for those that might apply and have previous background issues that are looking for an opportunity to join your team. Tim, you just said the word second chances. So do you all are you able to look beyond that incident, perhaps look beyond their background and evaluate going forward?
I'll jump in. I actually hardly ever hire anybody that doesn't have problems. I find that anybody that identifies as on the straight and narrow has not identified what their learning curve is. And it makes it extremely hard for us to develop. Simply put, they think they know more than we do, and it ends up being a waste of my time. I mean, how many chances does an adult need to figure it out? I got to tell you, I'm still trying to figure it out. So With that being said, if every time I called an operator and asked the question about money, they hung up the phone, I don't know if I would be as successful as I am. If every time I called a friend or a colleague and needed to vent about a thing that I was totally confused about, I don't know how successful I would be in my own right. If I didn't have spaces to air my opinions or a safe space to work on food and make errors, I don't know, quite frankly, if I would be sitting in this chair right now. And so if I can identify that I need a lot of room to grow, to err, to grow again, to screw things up multiple times and to work through them, then it makes it really, really easy for me to expand the conversation as it relates to who we should bring onto our team. And we just use a really simple process. We identify people that we believe are going to be committed, which is very hard to find, and people who are going to be loyal. Lastly, people that we believe we will be able to trust. So if you keep showing up, you don't steal from me, and you got a hard enough head where you don't believe that you're going to fail at this thing, then we can usually work with you. If you give up easy and you want to walk out the back door with my goods, it's probably not going to work out for either of us.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really grateful that people believe in second chances and forgiveness and all of those things. So life in general. Okay, so we have another audience question from Corey. Thank you, Corey. So Corey asks, I feel that especially since the pandemic, that many mindsets have changed with the amount of time that people want to spend with their family. It's an eye-opener for many that time is more limited and I'd say absolutely more precious. So in an industry that has been previously known for 12, 14-hour days, doubles, holidays, et cetera, instead of spending time with our families, what are y'all doing to provide the work-life balance for your staff, your managers, and also yourselves?
I can speak to that. Over the past 25 years, first of all, I definitely see more requests for time off than ever before. My personal philosophy is that if you request for time off, I give it, no problem. So the only way to combat that is to make sure that we have enough people on the team to ensure that when people want time off that they can get it, but also that also means that everybody has to come together at times, because inevitably there's going to be a day when everybody wants off, and it's a Saturday night Indigenous people weekend, and it's extremely busy, and we unfortunately can't let everybody have off. So having policies for how people can take off, making sure that it's known. Part of that comes from our onboarding process. So, making sure that everybody understands that they are part of the wheel that turns, and making sure that everybody has a chance. So if we're open Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve, everybody is required to work one. Everybody has off at least one, so that there's a sense of equity amongst the team, that people can have that time off with their family. But absolutely, family has to take precedent. Also, I mean, obviously, sick time. The restaurant industry has been known for people being afraid to take time off because they're not feeling well. We don't want people coming to work sick. So, sick time, COVID pay time, all that is really important to make sure that from the beginning that everybody knows that's part of our culture, and that they feel comfortable being able to take that time.
Thank you, Ellen.
Also,
So,
sorry, one other thing.
go.
Mention, sorry, in terms of work-life balance and stress, also, I think that increasingly a benefit of mental health access to mental health resources is an important part of our benefit program. So besides the traditional insurance, which many people can't afford, we've been looking at different models of primary care and mental health that allow for affordable access to these type of resources. So we signed on with a company called Vitable Health, which allows for nurse practitioners to give telemedicine mental health visits. And it turns out to be very affordable, like $35 to $70 a month, depending on, on your business, I guess. So we give 50% off to everybody, but that has been a very popular benefit.
I was just going to chime in, Ellen. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think, growing up, it was a badge of honor, how many hours you could put in. And I think as operators, our mindsets have changed, or at least I've changed my school of thought. Having better balance delivers better efficiency. I'd rather have everyone work and have the ability to pass the baton. Shows that we're better managers, that we are more sustainable. Just like lowering your food cost, the answer is not buying cheaper ingredients, right? We would never go that way. So why is it to be able to manage your margins, to ask a manager to work 60, 70, 80 hours and have them not have longevity? We have a firm policy here. We believe 50 hours is a good max. We try to get people off 2 days in a row. And by doing so, we're cultivating a team that wants to be here, a team that has a balance, that understands that when they come in here, they're ready to work and go at it hard and give us their best, and not trying to, gain a better labor cost by having someone do too many hours when they're not efficient, when they may quit in a year or just burn out.
Thank you, Tim and Ellen, both for that. I personally am just so grateful and thankful that we are talking about mental health in this industry and wellness as a whole. Erick, I'd love to ask you your thoughts and implementations on work-life balance, not only for your staff, but for yourself.
Well, I was trying not to say anything. I see this from a different angle, and it's not. It doesn't take anything away from the two speakers before me. But what do you do with a team that doesn't come from a family that'll help them with their down payment on their home? What do you do with a team that comes in the door with $70,000 in student loans? What do you do with a team where there is no used car that your sister or brother is going to give you? Just about everything you get that advances you is going to be from your own blood, sweat, and tears. And so we work really diligently to create opportunities where we can incentivize our team members to get out of the deficit, because quite frankly, a lot of them are in a deficit. And I was in a deficit when I started in restaurants. And we've seen people purchase their first homes. We've supported those initiatives. We make sure that we do research so that opportunities that are out there in the marketplace, that we're the first to let them know. Because quite frankly, no bankers show up in my restaurant and say, hey, we want to make sure that your team members understand they can put 3% down on their first home. And we'll teach them a pathway to get it. And so for the person that wants to work 4 days a week, we don't pressure them. We know that we're going to have some part-time employees, right, in that case. But for our team members who are vested and committed to not just the space, but also the idea of growth, we want to make sure that they have every option possible to work their way out of that space. Because the reality is, yes, we all need a work-life balance, but some of the balance that's provided in between our work and our life is the ability to provide for ourselves. I don't want to work 4 days a week and then ask somebody, for a favor. I just don't. It's not my mindset. And it wasn't my mindset as a line cook. It wasn't my mindset when I took my first sous chef position. It's not my mindset as a chef and or an operator. I don't knock anybody who wants to spend their entire summer. I have a beautiful wife who works in education. She gets the whole damn summer off. It's more work-life balance than I do. But at the end of the day, that's a different style of working, right? She does most of her production for, 10 months, 9.5 months out of the year. My production happens to happen throughout the course of the year. And so I think as operators, we have to identify the people who want to commit at different levels. And we have to meet them where they're at and engage them at those levels, because there's no blanket answer to work-life balance. Work-life balance for me is taking 2 days off a month because that's what I enjoy. And then I take the kind of vacations that I want to take when I want to take them. And it gives me the agency to say no to things because I create nest eggs that allow me to say no. Some people would not work that many days in a row. It would drive them crazy. And I have friends that are in the same space. They're like, dude, you work too much. And I'm like, well, okay, you drink too much. I mean, so we could all decide what our idea of balance is. And I think our team members would do well to be in structures where they can define that for themselves. Because what looks like balance is not always balance. So that's my 10 cents about that.
Very, very well put. Thank you. Well, y'all, first off, thank you so much for this real and honest conversation today. It's so important. One of my favorite parts of my job at OpenTable is learning from my restaurant partners every day. Today, I learned a lot, and I hope that y'all did too. Again, I'm honored to be part of this conversation, and thank you for sharing your invaluable knowledge on one of the toughest challenges that our industry is facing. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'm going to pass it over to Erica for some closing remarks.
I want to thank you, Eric, Ellen, Amanda, Tim, and Christina for giving us your time. And as Christina said, your very honest feedback. I got goosebumps numerous times during this conversation. So really appreciate you all sharing what it's like to be in the industry and what it's like to continue to grow your teams and grow yourselves. It's really incredible to hear, and we are grateful for that. For those of you that are listening, some of you asked if you could share this with your teams. A recording will be available so they can get goosebumps too. It will be available on independentrestaurantcoalition.com. And I just want to take a minute to note that I saw a lot of comments about grief and loss and mental health, and you were all asking for Ellen's resource again. We posted that in the Q&A, but you can also find on independentrestaurantcoalition.com an entire support center. There's information about financial support. There's lots of information about low cost or free mental health services. Please do give it a look. Being independent doesn't mean being alone. We are all here to support one another and to continue to grow this industry. So with that, a final thank you all for your time, for joining us today, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.